All right, so we are officially live. We'll do a sound test, make sure everything works. Apologize for being a couple minutes late. Had some technical difficulties we needed to work out, but you tuned in and you can hear us. Somebody get in the comments and let us know if you can hear this sound or not because I'm having a little bit of a time. Matter of fact, I'm gonna have to check my phone. Apologize for being late. I tried to get all of this stuff situated before I got here. Let me see. And you can hear us. All right, we sound a little muffled, but for the most part, we just gonna go. Hopefully, it don't sound as bad as the other ones did. But so we're here back live today on the social experiment. We're here with Vanessa Belen. I believe I said I got that right. I can't put my accent on it, but thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being a guest. Being willing to come on and have a conversation. I'm gonna run for city council. Um, yeah, so like I'm running for city council, and I reached out to a bunch of different people to see if they'll be interested in being a guest on the show. You're one of the people I reached out to. I appreciate you taking the opportunity to come on the show. The opportunity to kind of introduce yourself a little bit before we get started. Uh, yeah, but yeah, after you introduce yourself, I asked you a question. We can go from there and see how it works out.
All right. Well, thank you for having me and not butchering my last name. And yeah, so I'm Vanessa Belen. I will not give you my age because whatever, no one's business. But if you know, you know. I'm a mom and a property manager for a living. I have done a lot of different community work throughout the community for many years. Um, and yeah, like just happy to be here. It's been a while since I've been on air.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, a little rusty, but we'll get into it.
But thank you for coming back on the air. But first and foremost, like I said, I usually ask everybody, like, why did they? Oh no, you didn't keep coming up. Why were you interested in coming on the show to do this for me? First and foremost, I asked a bunch of people. I got some yeses, I got some no's, but I was just curious to know, like, what made you say yes?
Curiosity, like what your stance is, and what makes you tick, and, the decisions you can run. I've seen you around. I've seen you on social. I see you're pretty active, but we've never really like had an opportunity to like get to know each other. We did have a conversation once a few months back, which was very inspiring and kind of like got me wanting to do a little bit more in the community. Not necessarily be in the face of it, but more so behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't mind being behind the scenes. I don't always do the scenes. But yeah, just kind of getting to know you and picking your brain and letting so that other people can see like what is it about you that you know why should anybody vote for you too?
Okay, all right, yeah, and I appreciate that. Again, like I said, I just wanted to extend the invitation to people, so then that way people would come on and the questions could just flow. It could be authentic. I don't want anything to be scripted or anything like that. So with that being said, I appreciate you coming on. And again, if anybody's watching, if you're having trouble see, I'm hearing us, let us know so we can make the adjustments. But take a drink of water and I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Go ahead, you do that. So a little bit about you, your background.
Okay.
I tried to check your Facebook and really get an idea of like who you are, but it didn't really tell me anything.
Okay.
So I could go off the pictures and some of your posts, but which are quite interesting by the way. But I want to hear from you. Everybody else can.
All right. So 39 years old. Was born and raised in Erie, Pennsylvania. I went to Central High School. Graduated from Central High School, and then I went on to Clarion University. Majored in sociology with a minor in social work. I was able to get my degree. After getting my degree, I worked my first year of working. I worked as a teacher's assistant at Central. It was Central Tech at the time with the special needs classes. Um, so I worked there for about a year, and then after that year, I got into drug and alcohol counseling. My first, I want to say, professional job was at candidacy Erie. So I was doing drug and alcohol counseling, individual sessions, group therapy, and stuff like that. So I worked at Cadenza for about 3.5 years. And then after working at Cadenza for 3.5 years, I got a job at the Esper Treatment Center. I worked at Esper for about a year. And in the process of that, I picked up a job working for the Barber Center. I had a client, a family with a son with autism. So pretty much like day-to-day life skills and stuff like that. Like I assisted him with that stuff. Then I got a job at SDI Chambers Springs as a drug and alcohol counselor, which is a women's prison. So I worked there for about 7.5 years. Totaling altogether, the majority of my work has been in drug and alcohol counseling. And then most recently, I was working at Mercer University as assistant director of community engagement. while working that job, I was able to get my master's degree. But, like, so I pretty much
Congrats.
just thank you. And I'm also a licensed real estate agent, but I pretty much summed up like the things that I've done as far as like career on a professional wise.
Mhm.
But like outside of that, like I was like born and raised in Erie. You know, growing up, I'm going to the community centers, the free lunches, after school programs, and things like that. Like I benefited a lot from some of the programs and some of the services that Erie has to offer. I've had friends who went astray, friends who died, went to jail, and things like that. So just growing up, you know, pretty much like in a single mother household, it was difficult for me in Erie to kind of make decisions to stay on the straight and narrow or the up and up. So it was a lot of people who played a role in my life who shaped me. The Erie community definitely played a major role in how I was shaped and how I was molded into a man. So it was more of a like when you see some of the things going on in your community, when you were part of the community and you took advantage of some of the opportunities that presented themselves, it's more of a I would want to give back some of those things. So a little bit like those are some things about myself as far as upbringing. I have my mother has 3 children, my father has 4 children. So you know, I have 2 sisters, no, 3 sisters, 2 brothers.
Mhm.
Then I have 8 children myself. But
Okay.
I mean, yeah, for the most part, born and raised in Erie. I only left to go to college. I don't really plan on leaving anywhere outside of vacation. So Erie is near and dear to my heart.
Feel that like, for alcohol and just the meeting people and their stories and the just the experience that you receive from all the different jobs you've had
Hmm.
throughout the years, you feel that has prepared you to take on a role such as city council.
Absolutely do. So majoring in sociology, which is the study of society, like that was something that was very interesting to me because my original major was secondary education math. I wanted to be a math teacher, but I got into a little bit of trouble. And they told me like you'll never be able to be a math teacher, whatever the case may be. So my friend Marquel and I, we went to Clarion together. We were in a sociology class, and as we're taking the classes, it was a question that came up, and one of the questions that came up, one of the students was like, "What are food stamps?" Yeah, so when I heard the students say, "What are food stamps?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna master this." So I switched
Right.
my major to sociology, and then I understood like what it was, and then they tell you like you work in a social service field. It's not a job where you're gonna get rich, but it's more of an opportunity to care for people. So and then just based on some of my experiences growing up in the city of Erie, like I understood what that meant. So it's more of a okay, now I'm getting involved in, doing community service hours or working with nonprofit organizations. And then having those conversations with individuals who've been incarcerated or had issues with mental health, you kind of see how the community has shaped some individuals as well as how the community has tore some individuals apart. But then also working jobs like working at Merciers and collaborating and connecting with so many different organizations. What I've seen and noticed is there are plenty of different organizations in the city of Erie that have resources for people who are in need. And a lot of people don't, they either aren't aware of those resources, they don't have access to those resources, or it's not being publicized enough. So, like working drug and alcohol, doing community service, working up in research, being a real estate agent, and then even like just doing some of the community service, I feel like a lot of those things have shaped me to make it to the city council seat, as well as some of the individuals that I've connected with, relationships that I've created. It's more of a kind of like I've been building myself up for this moment without even knowing I've been building myself up for this moment. And then now that I'm getting information, it's kind of like it aligns with my lifestyle.
Have you actually?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, especially when, like, so when they say follow your dreams,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? And you never really know what follow your dreams means until you wake up and you do the work and you kind of fall in love with the work that you do. And then you start meeting other people who love doing that type of work as well. So it's just kind of like it went from being a job to being a career to being an interest to more being like life's work. You know what I mean? And it all just kind of started from studying and just trying to get a job immediately after college.
So, if you were taking life, think your situation that has made you think enough is enough. It's time to have new blood on city council. I'm running.
Hmm.
This is it. I'm going for it. Anything in particular?
So I would say it was a buildup of things. It wasn't anything in particular. It was always something that was in the back of my mind. But I always just be like, I'm gonna run for mayor one day, just to say I did it. It's my city. I don't care if I win or lose. I'm gonna run for mayor. But
Just that.
But as I was like getting older and starting to notice different things going on, like for instance, you got shootings in the school. So there was a shooting in Erie High a couple of years ago, and that's when I really kind of got involved with interacting with other people about some of my concerns in the community. And then some issues that my own children were having within the schools or even within the neighborhood. It was just kind of like a buildup of things. But then what I started to notice or what I started to learn, educate myself was, is that city council members in the mayor pretty much shape everything that happens and goes on within the city. And we hear a lot of people complain, or we sit back and a lot of people have opinions about what's going on, and we see it all on social media and stuff like that. And I got to the point of like, what could I do to have more of an impact? What could I do to be able to not just be a person that's complaining, but to be somebody that's actually doing something? So then, when that seat came available for when Mel when he took the seat, I actually was considering it then, but I missed the deadline to do it. And then so I went going to city council meetings, just talking and speaking my concerns and stuff like that. And then me and Chuck just kind of had a meeting like, hey man, this is like, this is something for you. And he kind of encouraged me. We talked about it a lot. And then I met with a couple other people, and it was kind of like, yeah, you're pretty much like next up. Based on the work that I've been doing, um, on social media and going to the city council meetings, county council meetings, stuff like that. People are like, why not run for a seat as opposed to just always running your mouth like that? So it was more of a multiple incidents that took place within the city, and then me understanding the importance of the role, and also realizing that there is not a lot of people from my generation who are actually stepping up to. I'm not going to say do good work, but are stepping up to fill positions to where the decisions can't be made so good work can continue to be done.
I agree with that one. So is there, touch upon once you get elected? And I won't say once you get elected, when you're elected,
Right.
right? Let's
Right.
manifest that. Are there specific key issues that you would like to make sure you touch on for the next?
Absolutely. But so what I did learn though is like, people are like, I've had conversations and they're like, you're doing good at campaigning, you're doing good at, what I mean, talking about some of the things that you would like to address, but you also need to understand how to be an elected official as opposed to just campaigning. So, being able to come in and learn the roles and responsibilities, understanding what a city council person is to be doing, and then making those connections and having those meetings. But then, like, ultimately, what I would like to do is I want to see people in positions of power who have somewhat of an influence over communities that are misrepresented or aren't represented at all. So, kind of put people in places to provide resources. Like I was saying earlier, there are community resources for a lot of different things, and community resources doesn't always mean money, but people are missing information or information isn't being passed out, distributed equally, I guess, or equitably to where like a lot of people who are taking advantage of the opportunities, they see the benefits of Erie, they see the good in Erie, and then there's a audience of people who feel like Erie is nothing or it's no good or there's nothing to benefit from. So it's more of a how can we make those connections so that we all can benefit from the resource in Erie, and then also how can we build those relationships with those people who are taking advantage of the opportunities, and how do we build those relationships with people who are offering, affording those opportunities and make those connections. So I'm real big on community resources, offering different resources to different people who need them, who aren't aware of them, or who weren't privy to the opportunities that were available. And then also public safety. I feel like there's a huge, I guess, gap or divide with the relationship that the citizens of Erie have and the Erie police. And I feel like it's important for us to kind of know who our officers are, gain a better understanding of some of their jobs, and then to have some people from our community actually be police officers, have the courage to encourage our children to be police officers, to be firefighters, to work with the EMS. Because going through the budget, I'm noticing that a lot of the funds go, to police officers, and it doesn't take as much training as it took for me to get my master's degree or my bachelor's degree. And then also to be able to have that sense of security when somebody's in your neighborhood looks like you policing your neighborhood and things like that. But then also us building those relationships with the local police so that we're not always worried about them or afraid of. Like I was at the police's union meeting last night, pretty much giving them my spiel on why I was running. And they took well to what I had to say, but I think it's important for us to know who our officers are, not only in uniform but outside of uniform. I think it's important for our officers to be in our communities, not only in uniforms but outside of uniform. I'm soliciting some businesses and things like that. So community resources, public safety, and then also housing. Like I know There's a big push for home ownership in the city of Erie, but I think a lot of people don't even know how to be good tenants. You know what I mean? So educating people on
Yeah.
some of the small intricacies of a homeowner. Changing some like changing your furnace filter. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
checking for carbon monoxide and things like that. Like
Your bedroom.
yeah, yeah, for your smoke detector. Yeah, like a lot of people are gung
Yeah.
ho on being homeowners, but we don't. A lot of us don't understand the concept of what it takes to be a homeowner. A lot of us aren't even good tenants. So being able to help tenants build relationships with landlords and landlords build relationships with tenants, and again, having services and resources to be able to support people in need, if it's landlord or tenant. And I know a lot of the things that I talked about. Some of the things are within the authority of a city council person, and some of it also just takes an enthusiastic person who's encouraging other people, who's motivating other people to do some of the work that needs to get done. So it's more of a reading, understanding ordinances, policy, and policies, making changes where changes need to be fit, and then also encouraging and inspiring people who truly love the city of Erie to be able to spread some of the good news and some of the good works of it, so that way we can continue to build on our city.
Definitely appreciate that because it's being a part of the council,
Hmm.
of that council.
Hmm.
Been around for quite a few years. I've been a member for 9 years.
Okay.
It had a different name before, um, but that is the bridge that gap between the and because they
Right.
have families to go home and they would like their job to be here, right?
Absolutely.
So we also have to work with them and give them a little break. So it feels like they don't deserve it.
Hmm.
We all know Black and Black necessarily, no, not necessarily care for law enforcement,
Hmm.
but they feel that law enforcement don't care about them.
Right.
And so I think you would actually benefit from more about that
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Let me know
later.
about the opportunity because
Uh,
that's important to me.
yeah. So do you feel that it's always the same organization, the individuals that are taking advantage of the resources that city council offers?
Well, I guess that's a two-way. I would say yes, and I believe that's no fault to them
Mm-hmm.
because they are aware of the information. You know what I mean? And then a lot of people, a lot of us, I'm not gonna say people, a lot of us who sit back and maybe have issues with those things, what we'll do is we'll blame the organization or we'll talk bad about the organization instead of figuring out how are they continuously getting these resources, where does the information come from? But also, I believe that some of those organizations should be offering that information to people as well within the community. Some of the people who they serve, to kind of like, and then even other organizations that do similar work. I feel like we need to have less competition and more collaboration in the city of Erie. But when you have organizations who are constantly getting the rewards or getting the benefits or getting the resources, it's because they pay attention to what's going on. You know what I mean? So it's also, I also want to encourage people to pay attention to what's going on, and to get people who can communicate messages and communicate information effectively, so that we all can benefit from it. Because you can't knock somebody for being awoke or being prepared or being ready to take advantage of opportunity when it presents itself. But you also can't fault people who aren't aware of the information and opportunities that are available. So I think it's more of the same people get the rewards because they know about them and they keep showing up for them. And then those of us who are noticing this and who aren't getting the rewards, we're not showing up. Or when we do show up, if it doesn't go our way the first time, we don't come back. Because I noticed that like a lot of people on the internet, like those grants seem to be going to the same people, or you have to be in a clique to get recognized for the 40 under 40, or you have to be in a clique to get recognized under. So then we get these negative mindsets about these organizations as opposed to figuring out like how can we get ourselves involved. So I guess the answer to that question is yes. I feel like it goes to the same places, but I believe it's because those people are aware of the opportunities and they go seek them, and then they tell their friends, and when you hang around individuals who are doing the same work, the news or the message gets spread around friends. So it looks like all the friends are winning, but
Yeah.
these are the people who I associate with. So when I get some news, I take advantage of it, and I tell you, it might not be your year this year.
True.
You'll get it the next year. So I feel like we need to be more active to the opportunities, more present when they become aware, and don't quit when we don't win the first time. Absolutely.
So how do you plan to engage, the folks within the community and kind of hear what their concerns are besides them showing up to a city council meeting, which we encourage.
Mhm.
We know they're not the most fun,
Mhm.
I've attended a few, and yeah, there's really nothing fun about it. It shouldn't be.
Right.
How can how will you go about being able to give people the opportunity to listen to what their issues are?
So it's more of a like meeting people where they are. I know again this is my first time ever running for any seat, and I've been at meetings and I've told elected officials like when it's time to get my vote, you would knock on my door. You would text my phone or call my phone. You would show up to my local bar or you would show up to my local community center and want to speak to me. But then once you get the seat, though, it's only, well, you didn't come to city council, you didn't come to city council. So just continuously making myself available, going to the community centers, spending time in the barbershops, in the hair salons, and social media. Like a lot of people feel like, people complain a lot on social media, so, we don't pay attention to that. But regardless of how we feel about those complaints, some of those things are valid. You know what I mean? So you'll see people who are on social media bashing Erie all day or complaining about Erie all day, and we'll look at it like all you do is complain, but not realizing that what those things are saying, it's like some of those things are valid. So making myself accessible, like I'm always out and about in the community, just doing different things. If it's for sports, if it's recreation, if it's just going to different people's events, just paying attention to what's going on, and then also this is something that I'm working on doing is I understand that Erie is a very diverse community, and there are a lot of smaller communities within a large community. Within those smaller communities, there's a captain or a champion or quote unquote for those communities. So being able to meet with some of the leaders or the captains or the champions of the smaller communities and kind of like having a council with them to be able to like, hey, what's going on over there? Like how are things in your area or how was your neighborhood watch meeting going and stuff like that to be able to get the information from people to understand that like I can't speak for everybody, but I can listen to the people who speak for a lot, and then we can come together to have some type of collaborative efforts to promote some type of change. So it's more of a staying in tune with what's going on in the neighborhoods, making myself accessible to people, and then identifying the champions or the captains of the communities who can assist. Absolutely.
About that.
Right.
No one's coming to them.
Right.
Um, I've seen throughout the years, and even at one point when I ran for city council, I noticed how people were just doing things for people opportunities. And, it is absolutely okay to say, I
Mhm.
will not put the photo up.
Mm.
I will not be endorsing you just because we're in the same picture. And no, I don't believe it. Like, that is one of the most annoying things that I see that, of course it happens, in all areas of government. I do feel it's very annoying to see individuals post themselves up just to have that photo opportunity
Mhm.
with certain black and brown individuals.
Mhm.
I mean, but also they're not doing anything to address intersections.
Absolutely. That's something that I've learned and been learning as far as like people are like, oh, you might want to stay away from their cameras or be careful who you align yourself with because you got a lot of momentum and people are gonna try to attach themselves to you and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm definitely understanding that and learning that. And then even like I went to a church to ask the pastor if I could speak to him about gaining support from his congregation. I outright told him like, I'm not a member of your church and I've never visited your church. So I don't want you to feel like I'm one of those guys who's gonna come in. I'm not asking to speak to your pulpit. Like you and I have somewhat of a relationship. So if you understand and agree where I'm coming from, then maybe you can ask for the support of your congregation on my behalf because what I don't want to do is come in here and be that guy that's like, hey everyone, hey man, let's pray, hallelujah. I'm running for city council. So I definitely understand not trying to take advantage of people in places that I've never been before because I'm running for city council, but also understanding the importance of putting the information out there and trying to get in front of as many people who I know are going to vote as I possibly can.
It's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really a lot of and a lot of folks don't know this. I think this is something you learn when you go through the process of like being a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a lot of times the folks who visit churches, depending on the church, obviously, and depending on the culture,
Mm-hmm.
um, they don't know what's going on in their city.
Right.
They don't know who they should vote for. They feel like what's the community, which is one thing that I heard a lot when I ran years ago,
Uh-huh.
and still here to this day. Well, they ain't coming to my church, so
Right.
why do I care?
Right.
They don't show us that they care and that that they are concerned with what's going on within like our community.
Right.
Um, I've never this with enough. They're not getting business. That's no shade on you.
No, yeah.
Or like information. Um, they do not get those visits. They are like put to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And getting folks and getting that respect from the pastor and the churches that I don't attend, but you know, these are the things that I'm running on. Are these that
Right.
maybe some of your people in the congregation are having? I would like to visit and let them know like this is what I that this would be beneficial. For them to get out and vote, which is a problem for some folks because of their language barriers.
Right. Right.
Most, polls don't have interpreters available, which is a whole nother that's a whole nother subject for another day. But definitely meeting them at the church, I think, is ideal.
Yeah.
And it shows that you actually a lot of people who don't study from government, but meeting them at their church to see what their needs are doesn't
Yeah, and I'm trying to strategically do it again so it doesn't just look or seem like, oh, and all of a sudden, it's election time. We
yeah.
got politicians, coming in church because I'm pretty sure everybody has those conversations. So again, like I said, it's more of a finding a person who is relatable to that population of people, and then I'm not even gonna say gaining the trust, but gaining the attention of that individual for them to hear my message and hear where I'm coming from to see if that's something that they would be beneficial to them to deliver, or even to deliver. No, this is not the God for us because I don't want anything handed to me. Like I feel like if people agree with me, then absolutely I want your vote. But if you don't agree with me, I don't want anybody to put me in a seat or a position because I'm popular or because of a popularity contest because that's the last thing that we need right now. And I feel like that's why we're in some of the issues that we're in today.
Yes, because there are some people that, and this is personal opinion, need to step down. Time to pass the baton. You did your time. We need fresh blood. We need new faces. We need fresh ideas. And if you keep getting the same individuals on city council, you're going to keep getting the same stuff. Like the same issues are still constantly being addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People within current communities still feel like they're not, heard or not even a thought
Mm-hmm.
on city council's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel like this is the time, especially with everything going on a grander scale when it
Right.
comes to politics. Um, it's time, and people need to just, you know,
I agree. I
hang it
agree.
up,
I agree.
hang it
I
up.
agree. I
They
mean,
can be a mentor.
absolutely.
They can be someone who gives advice. You know, give some pointers
Mm-hmm.
on how to handle that caseload. Because some people don't realize that actually city council is a part-time position, but it's actually full-time work
Absolutely.
with very little pay.
Absolutely.
So the rewards are not necessarily monetary as to why people city council.
Right.
There's really no.
No, there's no money involved. You're not getting rich. There's no rewards. It's more of a
Yeah,
having a care for the city that you actually live in.
yeah, very true. So, is there anything within like the budget that you would like to tackle, that you think needs to be addressed?
Now, as far as like the budget, I think it's more of a learning the budget and understanding over the history why things have changed. I do see some numbers have changed, and there was an explanation as far as like numbers not changing over a period of time.
Yeah,
But what I don't want to do is be projecting and saying, "Oh, we're going to slide this, cut this, add this, or increase that," without knowing all of the specifics and information. 7 people on council. There are 4 seats available, so I'm looking forward to learning from some of the people who are already there, learning from some of the people who have served in the past to see like what adjustments, if necessary, that can be made. But I do know that we need to be generating some revenue within the city of Erie. Like I know that for a fact, and we need to be figuring out more strategic ways to bring money in. We can make profits so that we're not coming. We're going broke right now. You know what I mean? So we're working our way out of the deficit, and we need to figure out
right.
some new strategies, some innovative ways to be able to do that, and we need to be able to have some people who are willing to assist with some of those initiatives.
Definitely can agree. So again, on a grander scale with politics and everything, there's all this talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and DEI this and DEI that, and the removal of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within at this point right now, it's on a federal level,
Mm-hmm.
but it's only in due time it's going to end up affecting on a local level, right? So that we can continue to get funding.
Right.
So how do you how do you feel that should be addressed? Like, how do you think that should be handled? Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be diversity, right?
Mhm.
We can't do nothing about that.
Mhm.
Um, equity is always going to be an issue that
Mhm.
needs to be worked on,
Right.
and so the conversations that people have, I feel, don't necessarily understand
Mhm.
diversity, equity, inclusion. They think
Right.
it's all, well, if you're black, you're going to get the job because they want to meet a quota. It has so much more. Oh, I'm sorry about that. It's so much more than just being black and brown,
Right.
getting up, a job opportunity based on your skin color. So I feel like this is something that is going to trickle down to local government.
Uh huh.
So how do you feel like you might be able to tackle that with, maybe having to take out those terms, right?
Mhm.
But still doing the work.
I think, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think, and that's why another reason why I'm running. I think that's why we need to build a stronger community because when things start coming down from the federal level, there's going to be some changes that we may not agree with, but unfortunately we have to do. But I look at it more of a like, how do you know your neighbor? You know what I mean? How do you know your coworkers? How do you know your classmates? And like, how can you assist with people? Because the funds may not be there for everything, but the resources are available.
Right.
There are people who are remorseful. There are people who are empathetic who understand to where we just have to figure out a way around, I guess, the term diversity, equity, and inclusion, and look at it more of a how can we have an economic impact on our community? How can I provide a service to my neighbor? How can my neighbor provide a service to me? How can I help the next person, so on and so forth? I mean, again, I understand that, with funds being cut and things like that, it would be very stressful. But then there are some people who at least act like they care, who have I'm not going to say a surplus of money, but they have enough funds to be able to offer a small amount of assistance. And then even just collaborating on different things to understand people a little differently because if we continuously rely on the government for everything, we won't have anything. So I think it's going to be important for us to start learning about sustainability, learning about collaborating with other people, understanding differences, being able to meet people where they are, and then also being able to help and assist when you can. And when you aren't able to help and assist, being able to find the resource for somebody who is in need, because there are going to be some people who are going to feel like now we have the upper hand, we have the advantage when we talk about DEI. When I think about DEI, I guess it's kind of like the underdog. Who's going to help the underdog who's getting beat up on, who's getting pounced on? And if we take that out, we still have to consider people who need assistance.
Yeah.
And if I'm strong where you're weak, I should be able to help you and vice versa. And if you don't know me, but somebody else knows me and they know where you're weak at and I'm strong at, we need to have people in the community who can build those bridges, connect those gaps, and help people where they are. Because unfortunately, there's going to be a short amount of funding coming down the road, and a lot of people are going to be up in arms about it. But then it's more of a, are we going to complain about it? Are we going to take action about it? And what are the things that we can do? So it's more of a solution based, finding solutions to some of the issues that we can foresee coming up because of what's coming down the pipeline.
Definitely coming down the
Mm-hmm.
pipeline, whether you like it or not, doesn't matter who you voted for,
Right.
it's going to happen.
Absolutely. So it's more of a now like how do you treat your neighbor? How do you know your community? How do you love your community? Because everybody doesn't have everything figured out, but we can all be of assistance to one another.
Right. What's your saying that you say? It's not you, then
It's
who?
not you and who.
And that, like, I feel like now more than ever, that that question is just so important.
Absolutely.
Just because something doesn't necessarily affect you directly does not mean it's not going to affect you indirectly sooner rather than later.
Right.
It's going to happen. And if you care about people, you care about community. So even if it doesn't affect you right away or ever, you should want to be, someone who stands up and advocates and speaks and, chip in where you can to help those who may not necessarily know how to
Mm-hmm.
or can't advocate for themselves,
Right.
or struggle with it.
Right.
So when you pose that question, by the way, you said it to me before. I was like, he don't know me. Like, who's really? I just met you. But it did make me think. It really, it made me think for so many days. Where I was like, what, what else can I do? What can I do more? You know, because for those who may not know, like I did do the sun. We're going on 10 years, and I didn't know that was gonna set me on a path of like being a fighter for justice, being an advocate. Advocating for those who may not know how to advocate for themselves and just being against violence and just so many different things. I feel
Mhm.
like I wore so many hats for so many years that at some point I did have burnout.
Mhm.
Um, and as I said in conversation with you a few months back, he's not either who, and I'm like, I don't like who is he talking to? I just met him. Did he just check me? But no, I appreciated that. It was something I needed to hear because no one else was telling me that.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I didn't even know I needed to hear that until I just like really sat there and thought about it for a few days. Like, damn, yeah, if not me, then who? Who's gonna do it? So
Absolutely.
I do appreciate that, and I thank you for that. But yeah, like I said, there are changes coming down the pipeline, whether we want them to or not.
Right.
It's just figuring out a way on how to pivot. So, like, how do we do that? I think, and little by little, we'll start to see like how people pivot,
Right.
even on a city council level. Like, how are you gonna pivot?
Right.
I think once you have that say, I think you'll be just fine figuring that out. I know you mentioned transportation earlier and infrastructure. Um, do you think that the city should prioritize more into transportation and making it more accessible for people to, I don't know, take the bus? And I
I'm
noticed that that bus route is not necessarily the most accessible for folks.
so on yeah, when it comes to that, so I think like I'm sorry, I'm just one of these comments just threw me off. You can't see it right there, but yeah, no. So as far as the transportation, like I grew up catching the bus. I'm not really too familiar with the bus schedule anymore, but I know at one point in time I should be able to rely on the EMTA to get me anywhere in the city of Erie. I mean, I know we also had the local cab company. A lot of people are doing like ride shares and stuff like that. So you got the Uber and the Lyft and things like that. But I do think it's important for us to kind of like do a little bit more research on the local transportation, but then again, also the resources. Because, like I said, I've seen a lot of people like I don't know how to catch the bus. I don't know what route to
Right.
take, what routes to take, and a lot of us are so in tune to like social media and our devices that we don't even take the time to research, or we don't consider to take the time to research the things that are beneficial to us. When I was working at Mercier, they told me like you can go on your app, your Maps app, and for anywhere that you need to go, instead of like there's a logo where you can either push walk, drive, or and it's
Hmm.
transit.
Yeah.
So like you can literally go on your phone and it tells you how to catch the bus from wherever you are to wherever you're trying to get to, the times, the route, and things like that. But again, I've been living in Erie my entire life, and I just learned that a year ago. So I feel like it's more of a how do we get
Yeah.
the information out to the community? How do we share that information? And then also I know it's individuals who are doing like their own personal ride sharing as well. So I think it's more of a how do we get those? How do we empower those people to get everything registered, legitimized, and stuff like that? So when there are needs for transportation services, there's a legit. We can go to the city website and we can find some of these people who are doing I want to call it ride sharing. We can't call it Uber because they're not using the app, but people who are doing ride sharing with their own vehicles, providing transportation for people in the community. Like, how do we get those people to be registered? How do we get those people to be official? So when somebody says, "Hey, the bus isn't coming, the bus isn't running," I can say, "Hey, you call Deontay Cooley's ride share services, and he does X, Y, and Z." So again, I think it's more. I mean, it's very important for us to lean into our citizens to understand some of the skill sets and some of the qualities that they have, and how can they be of service to other individuals? How can it be a benefit to other individuals, as well as sharing the information about the EMTA and the routes, how the routes are running, how to access the information, or even how to catch the bus. Because
Yeah.
I don't know how to catch the bus anymore. I used to be able to catch a bus.
Same here.
I can catch a bus. I used to live on Woodlawn. I can catch a bus from Buffalo. I can make it to the mall, make it to the
Right.
airport, then go to the library, go fishing, and make it back home all before 9:30 at night.
Right.
And
Before the
now I'm
light
like,
goes out. Right.
I don't know what to do. So
I
yeah, I
know.
think that's important that we do. As far as the transportation, but again, we have to educate our people, and people need to be open to the information that's available.
Right. So just to talk about equity, inclusion, and things of that nature and diversity. So, what are your thoughts with everything that's going on with ICE in the
Mhm.
community?
Mhm.
And, you know, and I don't want to just say it's only limited to like the Latino population because
Mhm.
obviously this is a welcoming city, so we do have a lot of new Americans. I'm sure we have quite a few undocumented individuals.
Mhm.
So, like, what are your thoughts about that with ICE just rolling up on individuals, not even identifying themselves, basically kidnapping folks because they're
Yeah.
not even covered. Like their faces are covered. You don't even know who this is. It's
Yeah.
just rolling up on you and just like throwing you in a vehicle. Like what are your thoughts?
I mean, for me, that has to be a scary situation.
Yeah.
I guess I would need to know more about as far as the process. Like, how do you go about doing that? Because I seen something. I believe it was in like DC or Baltimore or something. They arrested an individual who was a citizen. They sent him off to a jail where he
Yeah.
didn't know anybody. So as far as like the obtaining the information, I'm not exactly sure how they go about doing that. Like I've seen some of the I mean, some of the videos and stuff like that where they were at plastic and they were raiding. Um, I don't know. That's a touchy one for real because I don't necessarily know the rules or the parameters to it. I believe that if you are legally in the United States or you have a green card and you're working your steps up to and towards, I feel like you should be able to continue everything that you need to continue in order for you to be a citizen. I don't think it's fair that you should be profiled because of the way that you look like to, or you could possibly
Right.
just be quote unquote kidnapped. Because then I also seen some stuff where there are people who are posing as ICE officers, and ICE officers is not something that you see every single day. So it's
Right.
like, what am I supposed to do? If I
Mm.
fight, do I die? Or is this a real officer? Or, like if I show my paperwork or if I hand them over,
Mhm.
and it's excuse me, and it's not a real officer, will I ever get my things back to where when the real officers come and get me? So I think it's more of a we need to be educating our citizens, myself included, as far as the process and the procedures, how we can be advocates for those people who are dealing with this type of treatment at this point in time. Because again, I'm very ignorant to the subject, and I don't want to speak too much on it. But I also understand the importance of advocating for people who can't advocate for themselves, especially when people are being illegally arrested or kidnapped, as you said, and just being taken. Like I couldn't imagine just
Right.
going out the door one day and then not coming home, and I'm end up in a whole other country
Right.
because of what I look like and everything was false. So like I believe it's important for us to we need to be more open about the education that we offer because I feel like right now it's very secretive. Like a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they are afraid of saying the wrong thing or not saying the right thing. So people aren't getting the proper education and information. When you see an officer of the law, it's always you don't get involved with an investigation. But if I'm not educated on the process, where am I allowed to ask the ICE officer to show me his proper? You know what I mean? Like if I
Right.
see they're snatching somebody up, am I able to say, "Hey, what's going on here?" Like, can you identify yourself, or is it just going to be like what's the word I'm looking for? Am I interfering with an investigation or something like that? So, I mean, I believe it's important for us to educate our citizens. I feel like even if it's ICE officers themselves or somebody who is a representative of to have some meetings to say, hey, these are the steps, these are the procedures, and I'm not sure how that goes along with their laws as far as well, that's more like a heads up type of thing. But I think more information needs to be shared so that that way we know how to address these situations as opposed to just going to everything that we see off the internet. Like, because you can go on Instagram and see something and people automatically thinking this is the right way to handle it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a tough one for me to give like a straightforward answer because I'm not educated enough on it to say anything to where it's like, oh, you can't say that or that's against the
Yeah.
law, you know?
I definitely respect that. Just because it also creates unsafe environments for folks who can't necessarily defend themselves
Mhm.
within
Mhm.
children, which I have seen that is a concern. Well, if you have individuals who are claiming to be ICE, but they're not identifying themselves, well, now, women and young children are kind of at risk,
Mhm.
uh, possibly being kidnapped, God forbid, um, because these individuals can just come up on you and identify themselves, and the whole time it's not even ICE.
Right.
It's just some, random stranger thinking that they can,
Right.
take advantage of what's going on situationally. So I do encourage folks to educate themselves, and I'm somebody who's starting to do the same thing
Mhm.
because I don't know. I
Right.
don't know what it takes to get a green card or get your working papers or become a citizen. So I don't know. I like that you said that you're not really well versed, but that you plan on educating yourself time. Just because I'm a Latina does not mean I know all the ins and outs
Right.
of like what it takes to become a citizen.
Right.
Granted, I wasn't born here; I was born in Puerto Rico,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean the conversation about losing birthright citizenship does not, you know, somewhat bother me. Because, like, God forbid if that were to happen. I mean, granted, yes, I get to go be shipped off to a beautiful island where I have family, but that doesn't mean I want to go.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, that is a big concern right now that's going on. But I think folks getting educated you want to. I feel like if you're going to speak on it, the least you can do, you know
Absolutely.
what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. The people who are just speaking from their feelings or speaking from social media posts without educating themselves on subjects. You see a lot of conversations with stuff like that. You see a lot of relationships get ruined because people are just talking.
And like you said, we have our phones in our hands, and yet we're not educating ourselves.
Right.
You know, it's like it kills me when I see these questions on like Facebook.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm like, you do know you could have Googled that.
Right. Different app, same question. You could have got the
You
answer.
literally could have Googled it.
Right.
And and to each their own. You know, I get it. Maybe you want to hear other people's perspectives about a specific business
Hmm.
or, you know, a certain service or something. So maybe you do want opinions. But there are such a thing as called Google reviews and those Yelp reviews.
Yeah. 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 A lot of people. Yeah. You see a lot of attention seeking behavior on social media.
I do.
But the thing with that though too is I think that that's also important to pay attention to because depending on how open and how willing the person is, you can learn ways to help people based on
Yeah.
some of their posts, some of their statuses, some of the people that they interact with, some of the comment section and things like that. Like I know people. I'm never one of those people who say I'm not a judgmental person. I'm a very judgmental person. Like working in drug and alcohol, they teach you how to assess behaviors. You know what I mean? So you can create treatment plans and stuff like that. So there are things where I see and I'm like, I'm offering, I guess, professional assessments of social media posts and interactions in the comment section. I'm just like, that person could benefit a lot if they had X, Y, and Z, or this person needs to go see some type of therapist or see some type of counseling because they're sharing their issues and their concerns, and then you got their friends hyping it up, not even realizing that like you're creating a messy situation. Like I've been seeing some stuff that's been going on between some young ladies on the internet for quite some time now, and it's like I'm hoping that somebody can help wrap their arms around some of these people to help them get their stuff together before things go worse than what they already are. But you see it, and then it's more of a, well, I don't want to say something because I don't want to get attacked in the comment section, but I feel like being in a position where you have more authority or you have more resources to offer, when you speak to that person, you speak to them genuinely and caring, you can also offer them resources, services, and people to contact. I mean, hey, I see you going through some things. I mean, it's not a good look on Facebook, but I have a friend that you can talk to. Or there's a place where you can go address your concerns, as opposed to just sending a message and saying, "Yo, are you okay? Chill out," because then it's more of a, you just being nosy. But I definitely pay attention to the things that are going on Facebook to be able to identify some of the services that are needed in the city of Erie, some of the resources that are needed, and some of the support that could be used from to some of the people who are struggling. If it's grief, if it's depression, if it's anxiety, sometimes it's even boredom. Like you'll see people on social media who are putting everything out there, and it's kind of like, how do I assess this and see like what's up with this person today? You see it's a lot of different things that are going on. It kind of like it breaks my heart because I'm like, when do I mind my business and when do I mind theirs?
Right. And I can definitely agree with her because there are many times where I see things
Hmm.
and then you're like, oh my God, this person absolutely needs
Hmm.
a hug.
Hmm.
You know, they need someone to tell them that everything is going to be okay. I mean, I've done that on my own.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily like people, you know,
Hmm.
because everything is for everybody, for one, and two, I don't want anybody to know that I even, said anything.
Right.
It will be looked at as, they're clout chasing or, oh, she thinks she know that, she thinks she knows. Because people, one thing about social media, they're the most judgmental individuals
Right.
on the planet.
Right.
And if it's on social media, it must be true. Like,
Right.
you must be this.
Right. Right.
So I personally have been the type who's like, I don't want the attention because I made a comment. That even though I made a comment and it's for good resource information, may benefit other people,
Right.
I just don't want the attention of it. So I think it takes 2 seconds to reach out to someone even if you don't know them and say, listen, like we will be okay. Here's here's a flyer for some resources
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
like you said, I know someone that you can talk to. Or I know a place that you can just walk in
Right.
and it's anonymous. You don't even have to give your name. Or here's, three little numbers that you can
Right.
type into your phone,
Right.
you know. I do agree, like social media can be very entertaining, but at the same time heartbreaking.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's when mental health breaks need to take place where you're like, I'm not.
Right, right. But it's like, how do you tell the people who need it the most that they should take that? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
when you see it and you notice it, and then like, oh, but you always on social media. I'm like, yeah, I get it. My social media page doesn't look like that. You know what I mean? Because I've had that conversation. Like, you be on social media all day, and you telling me to too. I'm like, yeah, if you scroll my page or scroll your page, like, it's like two completely different places. So, like, yeah, that's something that I kind of struggle with. Having the experience of being a drug and alcohol counselor, and doing those assessments and stuff like that is like, this person needs to hear this, but I also need to mind my business at the same time because I don't want to get in the middle of somebody else's mess. So I struggle with that at times, but I send messages to people. I check out on a lot of people, like in inboxes. Hey, hope all is well. See you going through something X, Y, and Z. But yeah, for the most part, I struggle with that. When to mind my business and when to mind theirs.
Right. It's hard when you can read someone's status and literally feel what it is that they're experiencing.
Mhm.
And I think that's why I do take breaks.
Mhm.
It's so important to take social media breaks. I highly recommend it, folks.
Mhm.
I know it's hard, but doing at least, even if you do it for a couple of days, it's a start. My last social media break was 30 days. I said, I'm going to stay off for 30. I'm not even going to look at it.
Mhm.
I deleted it off my phone, which was, of course, because you find out that you're kind of addicted to this.
Right. No, for real. Yeah. No, that's real. Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh, what's
Gotta
going
check
on
who
now?
said what. Yeah.
And also because of the political climate, there's just so much, there's so much going on, so much negative. Like
Mhm.
you hardly see any of the positive. You see so much of the negative. So it's like, oh my god, I need a mental health break.
Mhm.
So I highly recommend that people do that. And when you get into city council, I highly recommend you make sure you do that if you're minding your mental.
Absolutely.
Your world is going to change once
Uh,
you have that seat.
Listen, they come. I ain't gonna
They're
say
gonna know where
they.
you live. They're gonna know your phone number, your
Yeah, it's a
email.
lot of people that's just. I've been getting antagonized. People sending me messages. Then I'm also real estate agent. My phone number is public every place. I get text messages, phone calls, and stuff like that. But I mean, so far it's been fun. It has been fun. I will say it's been entertaining. Um, nobody's got me to the point to where I'm like, oh, I'm frustrated. Like nobody's caught me off my square yet, but I feel like it's coming because there have been some people who be like, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. Sometimes I respond, sometimes I don't. So finding balance and having the right people around me has been helping, but I definitely understand where you're coming from. So I can only imagine what it's going to be like once I get to
Oh
see.
yeah. You just gotta tell yourself that whatever they're skewing in your direction has nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
What they're feeling, what they're thinking, what they're saying, it has nothing to do with you,
Mm-hmm.
everything to do with them. And you just gotta wish them well or wish them the life that they deserve. And just to me, regardless of how you feel, like you said, I'm still gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
Right,
And I'm still gonna be who I am.
right.
So yeah, mind your mental. I would say the only question I have that I can think of left over is when you become a city council member, what do you see then? What, it's like a 4-year position, right?
4 years,
So
yeah.
what would you like to see within those 4 years, and what kind of legacy would you like to leave behind when your term is in? I don't see you doing it for one term. I see you doing it for as many terms as you can get in, just like some other folks.
Uh
I ain't gonna say no name,
huh.
but
Uh huh.
um, yeah. So, like, what do you see for like the first 4 years?
So like for the first, I'm not sure if it's possible within the first 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
but I do know that the population of Erie has been on the decline. We're now the fifth largest city in the state.
Yeah.
It's hard to retain young people to stay here to live.
Yeah.
As far as like making or earning, a working wage that's something that they can live off of. So I've been having conversations with different people within the union, to kind of like offer information about the pay, the benefits, and things like that to kind of encourage some of the young people to stay in Erie
Mm-hmm.
or to get jobs at the high school because I understand college is for everybody.
Right.
I would like to see the population increase. I would like to see young people who are graduating from college either stay here to have jobs
Mm-hmm.
or people come back home. I know the Erie Downtown Development Corporation, they're doing a lot of good things downtown to kind of like build Erie downtown. You got the downtown partnership, you got the caring place. It's just a bunch of different organizations that are working to build Erie up. And I want to see local families get involved in some of the redevelopment of Erie. Some of the families' names who've been in Erie forever. You think about some of the names. You think about like Hagan. You think about the Hoffmans and the Scotts and stuff like that. but there are no black. I'm not sure Brown, but there are no black family names that are like prestigious in Erie as far as like, oh yeah, Mr. Jones has a lot of money and they own this and this and this and that.
Right.
And that's the type of thing that I'm trying to help people create is understanding the opportunities that are available in the city, opportunities that are coming, and then being able to establish family businesses or working with other family businesses to kind of like establish a legacy within the city.
Yeah.
So our families can stay here, so it can be a place that we're proud of.
Yeah.
I know, well, like I said, I was born and raised in here. I love it here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it was always things to do in the summertime. Like all 4 seasons, we get to experience all 4 seasons. And I want to see more people staying in Erie, coming to visit Erie. So I think we need to work on, again, when we talk about these community resources, how can we make people feel comfortable to stay here? How can we make people feel like they're valued when they are here?
Mm.
How do we provide them with opportunities for them to grow and for them to thrive so they can
Yeah.
tell more people to stay here? Because there are, like, if you look around, there's construction everywhere.
Yeah.
People are doing landscaping everywhere. There's opportunities for government contracts. There's opportunities for private contracts for individuals who have businesses.
Right.
So it's more about empowering the people who live in Erie, encouraging them to do good things and the right things and get themselves established. So when opportunities do come, they take advantage of them. And then as well as like some of the organizations, some of the community centers, like
Yeah.
not leaving any turns unstoned. Any stones unturned,
Yeah.
as opposed to like going to the popular people or asking the popular people who are doing the good work,
Mm-hmm.
actually going to finding some of those grassroots organizations that are doing good work, identifying some of those people who are doing good work and pouring into them, encouraging them to continue to do the work, um, identifying who their teams are so that we can support their teams, we can point to their teams, making people understand that Erie can be a valuable place for families. So within the first 4 years, I want to see the population go up.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see more local residents be able to get some of those Erie opportunities, Erie jobs. I want to see some of those local unions get some of those opportunities to, some of those bill sites and work sites and stuff
Yeah.
like that so we can keep some of the money in Erie. Home ownership, I would like to see more people understanding how to buy a home,
Right.
how to be a homeowner, and then even being able to receive the support that's needed to be able to maintain their homes. And then, like, the village mentality. Like, at one point in time, there was not a place in the area that I could not go to where
Right.
my grandparents didn't know where I was at. And there was no internet. You know what I mean? There was no
Thank God.
social media and all of that. But at the end of the day, like,
Yeah.
if my grandmother lives on East 16th Street, if I made it to East 24th Street, like, she knew where I was at without, you know what I mean? And there was somebody who cared enough for me to keep me out of trouble and stuff like
True.
that. So I just want us to come back to the village mentality of Erie, to where people who live here can take advantage of the opportunities that are here. The people who are here who are already taking advantage of the opportunities, share those opportunities and that information with us.
Mm-hmm.
And more young people stay here because we're at a shift right now to where the baby boomers are getting to the age now to where them holding those positions and those seats aren't benefiting some of us, millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, to
Mm-hmm.
where of how can we empower people to stay here and we can encourage people younger than us to understand the importance of our roles here in the city of Erie.
I agree with everything you said. And you're so right. Yes, I have adult kids, and even though my son has a great job, he still wants to move out of town.
hmm
I have a daughter who's in school. She was in the Navy, so she's a vet. She wants to move out of town.
hmm
And one of the biggest issues that they have, of course, with staying here is opportunities, right?
hmm
So I would love to see more opportunities for them to stay and become homeowners of their own and, create their own little generational wealth
Right.
and, the future of our city.
Absolutely.
So I definitely agree with everything you said. It's definitely important. I will ask one last question.
Okay.
Would you tell your 18-year-old self?
My 18-year-old self?
Yeah. Did you figure 18? That's when the world says you're an adult, right?
Okay.
And we think we know everything. We
Oh.
really don't. Even now, at this age, we still don't know everything yet. We're still learning, evolving, and growing. But if there was one piece of advice that you would tell your 18-year-old self, what would it be?
Now, so I'm thinking back to 18. I was graduating high school, going to college, I was having my first child. What I will say is I don't regret anything. And if I could have a conversation with my 18-year-old self, I would tell myself, you know what? Everything's going to be all right. Just don't quit. Because, like, I know a lot of us wish we can go back and do things different and do things over, but like my life was pretty. I'm not gonna say rough. Well, I will say rough. We all have our opinions of what rough is, or
Right.
like my life was rough at 18. You know what I mean? Like I'm 18 years old. I'm feeling myself. I'm calling myself an adult. Going off to
Mhm.
college. So now I'm leaving home,
Yeah.
feeling like a grown man. I'm having a kid, and it was just like, oh yeah, I got this. I got it all figured out. And I made a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. Hit my head. Learned a lot. But I feel like had I not learned those things, I would be naive right now. I probably would be in jail,
Yeah.
if not dead. Um, So yeah, no, I don't. I wouldn't want to go back and change anything. I would just go tell myself that, like, 'cause I'm a very emotional person. So I'm not afraid to cry.
Mhm.
So I would tell myself, keep crying, keep working hard. Everything's gonna be all right because I don't want to undo anything that's happened to me.
Good to know. I think that's great. I would say that I feel the same way when it comes to myself.
Mhm.
Obviously, being a young mom, I was like, oh my God, I wish I could turn back the hands of time, but I absolutely have no regrets.
Mhm.
And if I did, I forgave myself,
Mhm.
right? Like you have to learn those lessons. And I guess telling our younger selves that it's absolutely okay to make those mistakes. It's okay to fall 50,000 times because
Mhm.
you're gonna get back up again. And just to keep telling yourself that it will be okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate you coming on. That was about an hour. Yeah, it was an hour.
Thanks
No,
for
so
having me
I
on.
appreciate the questions. I hope I was able to answer all the questions.
You did a great job.
For anybody who's watching or will watch, I'm not even exactly sure if the sound is sounding good or not, but we made it all the way through. I am having a fundraiser tomorrow at the Ushers Club. I need some motion. At the Ushers Club from 6 to 10. Feel free to come, show some love. We're going to have some food, we'll have some drinks. I'm going to be a good time. And then on the 26th, I'll be at Cafe 710 where I do a meet and greet there. It's also going to be a fundraiser. You can get some sweet treats from Mabel Howard over at Cafe 710. But outside of that, if you're not registered to vote, you have until May 5th to register to vote.
Yeah.
Because the primary election is May 20th. I will be number 5 on the ballot. I am asking for your vote. We're waiting for the weather to change. I got some stuff printed, so I'm about to get out here and get the knocking on doors here shortly. So it's real.
You'll enjoy it.
It really
I
is. It's real. Like it was first. It was just like an idea. Then it became a thought. Then it became a plan. Then it became an action, and now I'm here to the point now to where like at this point you can't stop. Like there's no.
I'm going back.
Yeah, you just keep going. So yeah, no, that's what it is for now. But again, thank you. I appreciate everybody for watching. If you got any questions, you can reach out to me, inbox me, you can email me. But you all have a good night. Thank you.